You're listening to the talk show on WESS 90.3, and you may have already noticed that this is not Rob McKenzie. Unfortunately, he has the flu going around, I hear, and I am sitting in for him today. My name is Kelly McKenzie. I am Dr. McKenzie's wife. I also am a professor here at East Stroudsburg University in the Department of Academic Enrichment and Learning. So Max, today we are going to be talking to one of those organizations here at WESS called Active Minds, and we have two guests. Would you introduce yourselves, please, by telling us your names and your major and your year of study here at ESU?
Hi, my name is Najee, Richardson. I'm a theater major, and this is my first year at ESU.
Hello, my name is Alice Ritchinson, and I am also first year here at ESU with a social work major.
That's interesting, because one of my assumptions coming into this interview was that you would probably both be in the field of psychology. So what got you interested in, well, I guess first we need to know, what is Active Minds?
Active Minds is a club on campus that promotes mental health awareness and tries to destigmatize it itself. Our goal is to make it a conversation starter that's an everyday topic that doesn't necessarily have the negative connotation to it that it does today.
So how did you get involved in Active Minds?
Well, I got involved. I actually started a script. I'm a theater major, so I started writing the script, and I just, really felt as if I wanted to do more. I didn't want to just be known for the art that I create. I wanted to help make change, and I started speaking with Dr. Linda Van Meter in our counseling department, and she just told me about Active Minds, so I decided, hey, it would be a good decision to, join and just see what they're about. And since joining, it's been nothing but amazing. And it's different. It's very different for me. A lot of just people that care and understand, rather than just doing it to do it. They have a purpose behind it, and I wanted to be behind that purpose because I saw the vision that they were trying to get across to, the ESU campus.
Mm-hmm. Alice, what about you? What made you join Active Minds?
My roommate. I did not get the chance to go to the club fair, and she said that this club looked great, that it looked interesting and something that I'd be interested in. So we went to the meeting, and I fell in love with it. I signed up to be fundraising chair the next day, and I just love the atmosphere of the club and what it stands for. Everyone there truly does want to make a difference, and they put their heart into it, especially our president. She lives and breathes Active Minds. She just wants to make such an impact that it spreads.
So both of you mentioned this idea of making an impact and that being very important to you. And one way to make that impact is to destigmatize the talking about mental illness. Why do you think it is stigmatized?
It's stigmatized because it's not under the norm. Our society, I believe, hasn't progressed to the part where if you say, oh, I have depression, it's looked at the same as, oh, I have a broken arm. It has...
I don't know, it carries a certain weight. Nobody wants to walk around with this weight or this label, and we want to help people that are stigmatized, break this label because... they're just like, you and me. They're just dealing with this and they're battling it as best as they can. And our job, as Active Minds members, we're here to, help treat that, or so much more just, help try to, find a way that's most comfortable to the individual, so they can be open and honest with us.
So it sounds like one thing that you're saying is that it's an illness, so that makes it a little bit different than something that you would be living with for the rest of your life. Is that the way that you view mental illness? Am I getting that right?
Well,
not so much as in like a sickly, nothing really that, can really harm you internally, but just so much more emotions wise. We feel that it, like I had said, it's something that you feel. It's not really something that, it can be cured. It can be, spoken about and, treated as best as we can. And, treatment is just, so much more trying to figure out a way that's, best for that person. We can't try to help this a person that's suffering from two different illnesses the same way because they're different. So.
a big misconception is it's not a one-stop shop. When I go into FYE rooms and talk about mental illness with some students, I use an example of a broken arm. When you have a broken arm, do you go to the doctor just once? No, you go multiple times to get the cast off, to get it checked out again. It's not something that you go to a psychiatrist once and you're fixed. It's something you live with the rest of your life, but you live with it. There's medicines, there's counseling, there's ways to pursue and persist.
So do you think that mental illness is something that because you said you live with it for the rest of your life, are there mental illnesses that can go away and that you don't live with for the rest of your lives, or is it typically mental illness something that you will be working through most of your life?
We had said it's a battle. It's a emotional, it's a mental battle. You want to fulfill this dream and this hope that I'll get better, but it's gonna take time. It's gonna take late nights. It's gonna take months, or some people even years. To understand like, hey, I'm going through this and I have to get through it, and I'm gonna get through it any way possible.
I was just going to say that every person is different and every experience contributes to that person in a different way.
When you talk about this battle, and everyone has a different experience, can you just give us a brief description of what someone might be working through in terms of having a mental illness? Can you describe maybe some of those emotions, some of those thoughts that are influencing the way that they're behaving and the way that they're thinking about their lives?
Loneliness. They may feel that the people around them don't get it. They may feel that they're not like them, or that they'll just never understand. They could also feel ostracized from society, because society can put these people that are dealing with these issues in a certain circle, or like a box, or a category, to be like, oh, just because he or she is going through this, they're like that, we're gonna put them over here, while everybody else that's normal is over here. And that's just, I don't really think that that's something that we should aim for. I think we should all aim for a sense of security within ourselves and making those people that are going through those things feel secure, because we all want the best for everybody, and we want to be able to help those people.
I heard you mention a couple times the term normal. And what would normal be? What does normal mean?
Personally, I don't like that word very much, because there is no such thing as normal, just as there is no such thing as perfect. There is what we're used to in society, or what we look up to try to strive to be, but in a sense, no one will ever reach that sense of normal, in my mind, at least.
One of the recent incidents that occurred in Florida was attributed to mental illness, and that's the shooting that happened, the 17-year-old who went into a school. And so now this discussion is starting to occur about what are the ramifications given that this person has a mental illness. What do you think of that? Should mental illness be taken into consideration when there is an incident such as this?
Well, I think it. I feel it can be. It's very important for us to take that into consideration, to see exactly what was going on in that person's mind when they were going through that issue. But I don't really think it should define them, because there's other emotional trauma that has built up, obviously, and they wanted to find a way that they could release that. And unfortunately, with the incident in Florida, that was fatal. It took a lot of lives, and I just wish the best for those families right now.
Alice, what about you? What do you think?
I agree a lot with what Najee just said. I do think that there are steps in school systems that should be taken more in place to deal or prevent these things from happening, and that mental illness shouldn't be blamed per se, because there are steps that can be taken, and not everyone with a mental illness is harming others. And that's another thing that adds to the stigma is our school shootings and where they get blamed, pigeonholed for that.
I heard you use the term also mental health in the same, and also mental illness. What's the difference between those two ideas?
In my, how I describe it is like an umbrella that is health, and then mental illness, mental health, they're pretty much under this umbrella, that there's different categories that fall into it. And there's also physical health in there that are under this umbrella. It's kind of, in my mind, how I use it is the same in a way, but everyone has mental health. Not everyone has a mental illness that is active in a way. Also, you can also think about it like antibiotics. Everyone has like germs in their body. Not all the germs are bad.
One thing that when you were talking about the incident in Florida was that there perhaps could have been some precautions that were taken. What do you think, what are some of the precautions that a school should take in order to make sure that incidents like this, or not, we can't make sure, but in order to maybe provide some assistance to people who might be suffering from mental illness?
Personally, I don't know exactly what their counseling situation is, but for ESU anyway, I know our counselors are booked, especially near finals. It's very hard to get a meeting. So if you're already struggling and feeling alone and then getting that rejection of, sorry, we're booked, which isn't necessarily their fault. They have other students, triage, that they need to see. But if there was more counselors and more people there for others who need the help, that it might be helpful.
What about the responsibility that someone might feel in terms of working with someone who has a mental illness? So in this case, there was a crisis counselor who had met with a young man and did not hospitalize him. And some people are questioning whether or not that person is responsible. What would you think in that regard? Would you consider that person being responsible for not having seen the signs?
No, I couldn't blame them, because they obviously had, saw in the beginning that something wasn't, right, something was up, but it's not, their responsibility, 24/7 to be on that, person. They're not there for them like, a parent should be. They're there to, have a, to be that person like, hey, it's gonna be fine. Just, talk to me about your feelings. Talk to me about, what it's, going on in school or anything like that. And I feel that you can't blame a person that's in his or her position that was trying to help an individual like him, because it's not just it's not the responsibility like a parent should be. I guess you could say that.
Before we went on the break, we were talking a little bit about crisis workers and signs that they might see in someone who has a mental illness that may mean that they may harm someone else, and whether or not they're responsible for doing something in order to make sure that that person is hospitalized. One thing that I was wondering is, what are some of those signs? Are there signs that we should be looking for that would help us to help others?
Well, every case is different, and also just as one does not wear a label on their head that says depression, there's not everyone wears on their sleeve how they're feeling, but people who are withdrawn and are having social anxiety, social issues that are overbearing should definitely seek help, which again isn't a bad thing. Seeking help is never bad.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I guess some signs you could look for. You could look for just that student ostracizing themselves, like I said, earlier, from, just different activities, clubs, always alone, never really, fitting in, to the school, I guess, scene, with different clubs and organizations. Like over here, you have the kids who play sports, you have the kids over here who do music and theater, just the arts, and you have that one child that just is in the middle, not really sure if I'm good enough for this or I'm going to be like, these kids over here. So they're kind of just alone most of the time, or they could not really, be what everybody wants them to be. They're different. They're different in their own positive, and I guess in his case a negative way, as we had saw how that had ended up. But those are just some things I think.
Here at ESU, what kind of signs have you seen from students, and have you had to help someone who you've seen who you thought might have been being challenged by a mental illness?
No, I haven't really personally seen any signs of anyone on campus, but a personal thing for me, my sister, she actually, growing up, she kind of was the odd one, in high school, and just was, I don't know, she always just was in something, whether that was a confrontation with teachers or other students or just random people throughout the city. It was hard for her. She's suffering from bipolar disorder, and that was rough.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing her having to go to counseling and countless appointments, with her psychiatrist and different psychiatrists, just all trying to figure out what is wrong, what is up, what can we do, to help her, what medicine is gonna help her be stable, not so much normal, but stable, for her to, just live a normal life. I don't like using that word, but, it's, just to live a life routinely, and, freely in her own will.
When you said that she had gone to a number of psychiatrists, why did she have to go to so many different psychiatrists?
It wasn't like, I don't know, like double digits. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
like two or three, only because, well, we stayed in like the same area, but it was just different people that she was referred to, that, she would, I guess, test out, or she wanted to, see just what they could do. Sometimes she would lose hope.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always try to, tell her, even though I'm like 10 or 11, like, hey, there's always a brighter tomorrow. There's always going to be a trial and a tribulation that you're going to have to figure a way through, around, up, any way that you have to get through this or around it. There's always going to be, sunshine at the end of your, troubles.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried, for years, and right now things are okay. I just, remember that being very vivid, taking a lot of these different rides to different places I just didn't know. But, later on in life, I'm figuring this out. So, it played a big part of my life.
So it sounds like working with people with mental illness, that it's not an exact science, unlike breaking one's arm, where someone can say this is what you need to do in order to mend your arm. It sounds like there's a lot of trials, and is that the case for most people, do you think?
Yes. A lot of people have the issue of they go to one psychiatrist, they don't work out, and they're like, well, I tried. I guess it's not for me. But not every psychiatrist is the same. There are bad ones out there, just how there are bad professors. Not all professors are bad, though, just because you have that one bad one. So it is an exact science. It isn't. Because people aren't an exact science. Not this person isn't the same as that person. Everyone takes in different experiences in a different way. They process them. What would affect one person won't affect the other person the same way.
One thing that you had mentioned when you were speaking about your sister was the difficulty she had with coping with various situations. Is that a commonality among people who suffer from mental illness?
You said...
I was wondering if that's something that you see that might be common among people, is the challenge with coping with difficulties.
Well, first of all, coping with the fact that they have this unfortunate label. Like, hey, I'm depression, or hey, I'm, schizophrenia, or hey, I'm, this, that, or whatever they're going through. Of course, that's going to be one of the first things to kind of, bring them down, to make them feel as if, oh, I'm not like other people. But, I feel in, her case, she coped very angrily. She had a deep anger built up inside of her, as if the world was after her, like the police or friends, of friends that knew her were after her, just people around her, and it caused a lot of tension, growing up. But we always worked through it. We always found a way to be like, hey, we're not gonna give up on you, even though we may not like what you're going through, and you may, completely hate this. We're not gonna give up on you because there's always gonna be something good coming out of a struggle. So.
How is she today?
She's all right. She's 25, but she learned different ways on how to cope with this, and how to deal with society and what the world was throwing at her countless times. She got a grip on it, and I'm proud of her every single day, because she's a beautiful young woman.
Alice, have you had any personal experiences with mental illness?
I have. I haven't really talked about it that much. Through high school, I had a hard time, but I didn't really go to anyone for help. I did the bad thing. I didn't seek help. But through this club, I've learned it's okay to talk about it and experience it, and personally, I'm doing a lot better. Yeah. That's all I'd like to say about that.
Okay. So do you think, so your personal experiences were one, you said that your desire to help and make a change, but it also sounds as though perhaps your personal experiences are also reason that you're part of Active Minds. Do you find that those personal situations that you had to work through yourselves, that it contributes to your passion?
Definitely. I remember, talking to my sister and telling her, hey, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help people like you, people that struggle like you, people that cry and, feel like you're feeling, because this isn't something I want you to feel, you're going to have to, go through alone. I'm going to start what I have to start. I'm going to be involved like I should be, involved with this, because it's important. And it's helped, shape, around the passion of this, and countless ways, and just, it's only up from here.
One thing that Najee had talked about was the signs that family members especially could look for in order to help someone who in their family who has a mental illness. What, as a mother, would you think, what advice would you give to me of what I should look for as signs in my children?
Withdrawal is a number one sign, but also changes in eating habits, who they hang out with, how even they're dressing or acting is one, their sleeping patterns, if they're sleeping too much or too little, also just an overload of or their stress level itself.
How do I know whether or not that's just normal adolescent behavior, or is something that I should be really concerned about?
Well, communication is one of the number one things that's important, is to check in, talk to your child, see if everything is going okay, how they're feeling mentally, physically, emotionally, just making sure everything's in check.
So if my child does divulge to me that they're not feeling mentally stable, that they're feeling high levels of stress, maybe that they're engaging in behavior that they feel uncomfortable with themselves, what would be the next step for me?
Oh, I was saying, when in doubt, seek help out. First step that you might want to consider is the school itself. They have counselors there who have resources. Here we have CAPS at ESU, and at high schools they also have counselors that know of resources in the area. There are help groups. There are groups at the high school or college, that group therapy, that kind of thing, or individual, one-on-one.
Why do you think it might be? Is it, I guess I should ask you this question, given that you both have experiences with mental illness, is it difficult for families to work through mental illness, or are they, I mean, I'm sure it is difficult, but in terms of the labeling, because I heard that a lot in your discussion, that it seems like when someone is labeled with depression or schizophrenia, that it's a huge weight for them, and almost it feels to me, the way that you're talking about it, that it's something that could define them for the rest of their lives in a way that they're uncomfortable with. What about the family?
Well, the family, they'll definitely feel a sense of needing, from that child. They'll feel a sense of a bigger responsibility, more than just being a father, a mother, or a cousin, or brother or sister. They'll feel like, hey, this is big. This is either going to make or break, them and us. Because if we're not there, if we're not checking in on them, if we're not loving and supporting them, we're failing them. And we don't want to fail. We want to have great communication, a sense of team and family building, and guidance, and just consistent love.
What advice would you give to someone who's working through this with a family member?
With somebody that's going through it.
Yeah, someone. What advice, given what you've been through with your sister, what advice would you give to someone else who's going through the same thing?
To be patient. Nothing's gonna happen overnight. That's just anything, whether that's a career or a dream or anything. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's gonna take time. It's definitely gonna, like I said, patience. That's just the all-around thing, because there will be times where you'll get frustrated, you'll be tired, just irritated, that it's not happening, but nothing can just happen. You have to, work for it. And this isn't just a family thing. This isn't just that person that's dealing with it. It's, like I said, it's a team.
Alice, what kind of advice would you give?
To keep in mind that it's going to be a shock for them too. It's something new for them. They're working through it. And over time, it'll work out, where they both, or where it can be seen that you're not alone, that your family will stand behind you. It's a shock at first.
What if your family member won't take your advice, or won't take, or if you tell them, try to help them seek help, and they're not willing to have that help?
I would say be persistent. I know for a friend's point of view, that's sometimes the best way to get across, and also offer to go with them, either to sit in with the counseling service itself or to wait in the lobby. Just being there, being supportive, can make the biggest difference.
So what advice would you give me about how to reach out to someone who I think might have a mental illness, but maybe I'm not a family member, but I'm concerned about them, maybe a close friend? How should I communicate with that person that I'm concerned about them?
Just be honest. You can't, try to sugarcoat the fact that, you're feeling a certain way about it. I think in any situation, the more, honesty, sometimes it can be best, because they'll want to know, like, hey, this person, is concerned, this person is worried, and all they want to do is, care for me and try to find the, best outreach system or person or place to, help me. You're not trying to harm them. You're not trying to, put them on the spot or put them in the spotlight. You just want to, help them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I statements are one of the best things you can do. I feel like blank when you do blank. It doesn't point blame. It allows you to open up to your feelings first. Also, be direct. An example of it, and also how you say things, your diction. An example of this is, you're not thinking about completing suicide, are you? It's, are you having suicidal tendencies? How you say things makes a huge difference. Using person first language. The person is not the illness. It's just part of them.
Mm-hmm. If I said yes, I am feeling suicidal, what would you suggest that what would you say to me? What would you do?
Well,
because I think that, sometimes we're faced with that challenge of, if someone is feeling that, making sure that they get the help that they need. What advice would you give to us?
Locate your counseling service, especially for college students on campus. Contact CAPS right away. And if it's something that you feel is a very extreme pressing issue, contact the suicide hotline. It's 24 hours, and it's always open. It's free to call. Just talk to your RD also, especially college campuses, because they have resources if you don't have them. There's professors, they have resources also. And if it's not on a college campus, I would say stick to the suicide hotline, and also look for counseling services nearby who specialize in suicide prevention.
What if someone is suggesting that they may be having those thoughts to me? Should I take that seriously?
Definitely. You don't want to just push that aside, because that's their life. That's a life, and it's precious. You want to attempt to, reach out, to somebody that may have the answers that you're looking for. But, always keep an eye out for them, because you just never know what could happen.
You're listening to the talk show on WESS 90.3, and this is Kelly McKenzie. I'm a professor in the Department of Academic Enrichment and Learning here at ESU. Rob is sick today, unfortunately. He has the flu, so we hope he gets better. I would like to introduce again the two guests I have from Active Minds, Alice Richardson and Najee Richardson. Can you just briefly tell us again what Active Minds is, just to remind the listeners?
Yeah, Active Minds is an organization. It's nationwide, all throughout campuses. And on ESU's campus, we try to promote mental health and try to make it aware and break the stigmatism.
One show that was on Netflix, and I know that a lot of college students watch this show, is called 13 Reasons Why. And this is a show about a young woman who, I believe it's for 13 days straight, right? Each day she records a situation that she's in or about her day and the reason why she's moving toward committing suicide. In the end, she does commit suicide. Can you tell me what your thoughts are about that show?
Hey, go ahead.
I have some mixed feelings about the show. Looking at it as just a Hollywood production, it's okay. But looking at it through the lens of someone who now is aware of mental health and how it kind of it romanticizes it and it predicts it in a not so great light. The book was a lot better. I didn't really like the TV show. It was a very touchy subject, and there should have been more disclaimers, especially with people who are triggered by those types of things, and the fact that they kind of showed her suicide itself. They could have gone about it a lot of different ways that they didn't. So.
I think the show was it was produced very well, directed very well. It was amazingly casted. Those characters were brought to life from the book, genuinely. But there were just, it was there should have been more disclaimers, obviously. And now that I'm a part of, making mental health aware, I just see, how it, triggered me, from, just why, like replaying everything and watching it over again, just like, wow, I just didn't know that some of these scenes, could have been televised, or they should have been directed a certain way, a different way, so that, those that are going through that weren't triggered.
For those who have not seen the show, and I'm assuming that some of the listeners have not, could you describe why you thought the show romanticized suicide?
Yes. So typically, those who are thinking about completing suicide will not leave it's not something that they do to say, oh, I got you, I got the last laugh, which is kind of how it made it seem on the TV show. It's because they feel horrible. They feel like they don't deserve to be here, that they're a burden. And from what they depicted in the TV show, it seemed like Hannah Baker did it because she didn't like what they were doing to her. And it wasn't because of necessarily the mental illness. I just didn't like how it was depicted.
how is it romanticized?
Yeah, you said that there were some things that you didn't care for about it,
Yeah.
about the show either.
Um,
What was it that you didn't like about it?
I didn't care so much for the ending scene, you know, the actual visual of her taking her own life. That could have been done in numerous different, you know, just ways that I guess were not as so much vivid. You know, it's very vivid, a little gory, you know, in that scene. But yeah, that's just what I felt. It just could have been, you know, done differently.
Are there any shows out there that you think do handle the topic of mental illness effectively?
Don't really watch TV that much, to be honest.
Effectively, I'm not really sure.
Well, since we're on the subject of media and TV, and just to segue a little bit into social media, do you think that social media has played a role in the mental illness today, or
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
how do you think it plays a role?
I mean, if we look at body image itself, they romanticize. I know I use that word again. Just having this perfect slim figure, and the odds are you're not going to have it. You're not going to be able to obtain it. So,
In what other ways do you think social media, so your social media use would be Instagram?
Yeah.
What other social media do you use?
I just have Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. That's really like the and on Facebook, but I'm like barely on those. But I see mostly on like, you know, Instagram, because there's like, you know, it's a photo app, you know, but it glorifies having everything laid out for you. You know, everything has to be perfect. You know, whether that's a body shape, a food, you know, a way of life, you know, for a student, an athlete, a musician, or anything. It's kind of like everything has to be in check. You know, nothing. It's like it doesn't really show the behind the scenes work, as you know, you could say, and it doesn't really show what people really go through. You know, and we all kind of want to relate to somebody, and we all have idols, but we can't really, you know, glorify what's, you know, not accurately represented. You know, and that's what I think.
So as we're sitting here, Alice, her phone is going off every so often with text messages, and I see her picking it up, and I wonder, does that add to anxiety that students may feel, that you have to be available to your parents on your cell phone, that if you don't answer, someone's concerned about you, if you don't answer, maybe a friend thinks that something is wrong in your relationship?
Definitely.
Or there's breakups on. I mean, can you talk a little bit about how that might impact your generation in terms of?
It's a crutch. You know, we need a phone. We need some sort of electronic, you know, to function. You know, like it's 2018 and pretty much everything is technologically based. You know, with all these different apps that, you know, are very useful. It's just like, you know, we're in a world now where it's like we have to function with it, you know, and, you know, being a college student is definitely something that I feel is needed, because we just, you know, we like never know. Like my mom could call me, or a family member or a friend could, you know, text me anything that I'm, you know, has my heart just pumping. I'm just like, oh man, this is crazy. Like I don't, you know, I don't know those next steps. It could be something great, some good news, or it could be something unfortunate, like a loss or a breakup, you know, or just, you know, bad news. So it definitely, you know, plays a part in anxiety.
I agree with the crutch thing. I know when my mom just texts me, we need to speak, I start thinking of the worst possible things I could have done. What did I do wrong? That answering it was Raquel, our president. I just want to make sure I'm not doing anything wrong. Yeah, I know I'm definitely dependent on my phone, and it does contribute to an anxiety of sorts. I have a friend who, if she doesn't have her phone on her, if she loses it, she cries. I lost my phone in the snow the other day, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to buy another one, but she was like, I'm in tears right now. I don't know what I can do without it, and it's definitely it's progressed in 10 years.
What other stressors do you have in your in your life as a college student that you think might contribute, for some people at least, to having challenges in terms of mental illness? Because you said you have this world of your cell phone and your connection to your family back home and your friends and your Instagram. What other things are going on in your lives that...
Well, we have active minds meetings. We have different events. For me, it's just, school and more music inclined things. That's pretty much about it. And, just staying on top of my education, first and foremost, that's the biggest stressor I feel for any college student, in this world. Just staying on top of your school, because nobody's really, here just to be here. And if you are, that, you have to deal with that differently. But school, time, like this was set up, and I don't even know, 20, 25 minutes, something like that. And, we're setting it up and trying to, rush and always have everything down. That definitely it's hard.
I would say the new atmosphere. Coming to college is a lot of changes. You're on your own. You have to learn a lot of things on your own. You're not dependent as much on your parents. I know the first week here, I had a guy come get me from the basement and say, hey, can you help me pour bleach into the washer? I don't know how to. And that was just a shock to me that, oh my gosh, you don't know how to do your wash.
Yeah.
But it's just every person goes through that. And it's a large stressor.
Yeah.
And the workload is a lot more than what you had in high school. Professors don't hold your hand as much as a teacher would. And there's a lot more expected of you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to lose. It's your money on the line. It's not free public school.
Yeah.
Do you see, given what you know about mental illness and all of these pressures in education and higher education, is there an increase in the number of students who are diagnosed with mental illness
in
college during this time of their lives?
Yes, there's a higher number of suicides. I know that, and depression, because again, it's a shock. So you're not used to it in your body. You're processing a different way, and sometimes it gets you in a bad mental state.
I think it's interesting that you said also your body, that you're processing things in different ways, physically, mentally, and that's, what part of that plays into mental health as well, your physical health.
Well, sorry.
It's okay. You want to? You can go. All right.
Well, I know at least, everyone's heard of the Freshman 15. And when you have, for ESU, we have Dansbury. It's a buffet. So at least for, I'm not trying to stigmatize, personally, that's horrible for me because I'm not super skinny and I have weight issues. So gaining even more weight, that's horrible, and I'm trying to work on that. But just that's an example, is that kind of mindset that you're on your own, so you have to choose what you eat. It's not provided from your parent. And sometimes when you have unlimited fries, you pick the wrong thing.
Fries are great. Well, I guess I would say, just, I don't know, like she said, the Freshman 15. I feel it's so much more, like with people that, I've encountered just, sickness, getting the common cold over, stressing too much, or being here, there, and there, and there, and just, running your body to the ground at the end of the day, because you're trying to make these meetings, you're trying to, make these practices, you're trying to make, class on time and get up for class. People take naps and they're tired, and, you have exhaustion, you have sometimes restlessness, and then other people, I know myself, work, so we have that, and, it's strenuous.
So all of this stress, all of these things that you're doing, what does Active Minds provide to students to help them during these difficult times of stress and help them cope with problems and situations? And do you provide some kind of open dialogue for students?
Last semester, we actually had a fest called De-Stress Fest, where we held it in Zytec, and talked about different ways to cope with stress. It's important to have personal time, whether that's coloring, reading a book, just taking a couple minutes to yourself to breathe. I know my Fitbit has an app thing on it that helps you breathe for 2 minutes to like calm down.
Yeah.
Just things like that, that is on campus or even in your own room, doing yoga. I love yoga, as you know. So also at club we have club meetings where we just do fun things like play Cards Against Humanity or watch a movie, have parties.
Or even like, in the beginning when we start meetings, we have icebreakers sometimes. So people can just, get a feel of, my phone, can get a feel of, who we are, and just understand us in a goofy way. But I also feel, Active Minds is their ears, their ears for, for listening, and their comfort, their open arms for me personally, because I feel, very welcome when I go. And they're, I guess, they're not up that level, where they're like parents, like, they're always gonna, be there and, yada, yada, all the parenting stuff. But, it's comforting. It's safe and it's a very honest place, where people can just talk about their day. They can talk about the things that they're going through. But, they're really staying, true to who they are. They don't have to hide behind a mask or, feel as if, oh, this girl, this person is judging me, or, this guy is saying that. It's very open and welcoming.
Do you have any events coming up this semester that students can attend if they're feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, needing to talk to someone?
Well, events we have coming up are Black Mental Health Matters, which is actually tomorrow, 6 p.m. at Beers Lecture Hall. Another one we have coming up is Mind Body Fair, which is March 1st, 12 to 4 at Zytec. And that one is to promote Eating Disorder Awareness Month, which is coming up. And both of these events will have information on how to de-stress, and it shows that you're not alone. That's the number one thing, is that what you're going through, someone might not be going exactly through the same thing, but people can empathize and sympathize with you and have a conversation, make you feel less alone.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time. Are there any last comments that you'd like to make, or anything that you would like to leave the listeners with?
Active Minds, if you're interested, which we would love you to be, meets every Thursday at 3 o'clock, Stroud Hall 118. Drop-ins are welcome with open arms. If you don't like it the first time, we won't pigeonhole you to stay. Our meetings are also educational. We normally have slides on different mental health disorders and also just information itself.
I would say to not be afraid, to speak to anybody about what you're truly feeling, because you never know what could come from that. A lot of love and support can come from that. A lot of openness and honesty, and just staying true to who you are and what you're feeling, and to never feel as if you're a burden to somebody, because you're beautiful.
Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us, Alice Richardson and Najee Richardson. Thank you so much from Active Minds. And if the listeners would like to get a hold of either one of you to talk more about mental health, mental illness, how can they contact you?
Through my email, considering fundraising chair, which is Ritchison, Ritchison, at live.esu.edu.
You can contact me through my email. It's gdeduwon, JEEDUWON @gmail.com.
So you've been listening to the talk show on WESS 90.3. And this is Kelly McKenzie again. I'm a professor in the Department of Academic Enrichment and Learning. Thank you for joining us to discuss this very important topic. And next week, Rob McKenzie will be back. He'll be better, having gotten over the flu, and be discussing some more interesting ideas. Thank you again.